by far my biggest crowd ever that I've done. Usually I'm at Peterson with like 5 or so people. So really how I usually do it is just like open forum. If you have questions along the way, just shout out or raise your hand, however you want to do it. Everything that's up here is in your packet. There's going to be some pages we won't really talk about. Their down payment assistance programs, and with you guys all being VA, those don't really, it's not the best option for you. Is everybody kind of in the market, or has anybody owned a home before in here? First time home buyers in? You from them? Okay, awesome. But everybody's in the market, and that's kind of crazy. So somebody said something about the market's crazy on their site.
I'm a bit wary about buying a house right now.
Yeah.
And let's say it crashes, the instant I buy it, then I'll lose like $50,000 more.
So that's kind of honestly where I like get nervous too, even just in my occupation. Just it's so inflated in a lot of different areas, and not all neighborhoods are like that. But I'd say up north, Briargate area is pretty inflated. Northgate, those prices just kind of like doubled in some areas. So you think when anything kind of regulates or like goes down a little bit, that those people will all be upside down. I mean, I don't know. They keep saying it's getting better and better and better. So who knows if the bubble will burst? I'm sure at some point. The idea is getting a good agent or a good realtor that can help you guys kind of see that inflation. So a lot of agents will sit people down and say, hey, they're asking $275. A year ago, this was $220. You know, we're not going to offer that. And it's just bringing people back to the reality that your house is not worth, $275. It's worth $220. In a year, it did not just magically become this greater number. So it's really, I would say, for all of you that are shopping, it's getting a good realtor. And you guys get to choose that. I mean, you don't pay for a realtor here in Colorado. The seller pays. So it's completely free to you. And just interview people. You don't have to sign anything until you're really ready to go, but call people, get a good feel. You spend a lot of time with them. I have somebody that's on their 28th offer right now. And it's like $150 is a harder price range, so she's $150 or below. But I mean, that's a lot of time that she's spending with somebody going around looking at 28 plus houses. So that's my best advice, is getting a good realtor that can help you with those inflated prices and kind of let you know where not to go, or so on and so forth. Okay, so the home buying steps. The most important piece, especially right now in our market, is getting pre-approved first. Most sellers will not even accept an offer at all if you don't have that lovely sheet of paper saying that you're pre-approved for that purchase price that they're asking for. So whomever you go to, just make sure that you do a full pre-approval. The first step they're saying is pre-qualification. Back in the day, you could just get pre-qualified, which was kind of just thrown out, kind of the numbers, your annual income, your monthly debts, and I would say, okay, well, based on that information, you would be good up to $300,000, and that would be enough that you could go out and start shopping without actually pulling credit. That's just a pre-qual. But now, most, like I said, sellers and even realtors to work with you, they want a hard pre-approval. So the pre-approval is where I collect everything and actually run it through the system, pull credit, and know that we're officially good to go. And to underwrite through Fannie Mae, which is just the mortgage regulator, essentially. So there's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae. We just underwrite by Fannie. So between VA and Fannie, that's who regulates our loans, that's whose rules we have to play by, which makes it a little bit easier that if we don't have too many hands in the pot. Ent does service our own loans. Let me back up real quick. So if you do a loan at Ent, we keep it there. You would always make your mortgage payment there. A lot of times brokers will sell it and it'll be with Wells Fargo and Bank of America and US Bank and whomever. We keep it always, so it makes things a little bit easier. Yes.
Just on that topic, is there any benefit to that case where the lender is also one who keeps the loan? Because my loan has been sold over maybe 2 or 3 times, but isn't too much in regards to like who I pay. But is there any benefit to getting somebody that keeps the loans in house?
Well, I mean, it's really just if you have any issues, right? You can walk right down the street and ask somebody. Usually it's escrow analysis time, so when they're recollecting for taxes and insurance, that's when it's awesome to have somebody right here that can walk you through what's going on, that can help you if there's any shortage or overage. My brother's loan got sold. He's down in Florida. He went to a big name bank. His got sold twice, and they actually missed one of his payments in the circulation of it being sold. That's on your credit, and that can prevent you from financing down, in the future. So that's where it just completely stinks when that happens and mistakes get made. But really, I would say just asking the questions. Is there any more chairs?
There's
I
two,
can make some
here.
notes too, right?
There's two over there. Two down here.
Nice. I'm so excited. Hey, they told me I have to
Shove Becky out of the way. She can't play that. You want to sit down there?
Stack your way.
Yeah, there's three.
But yeah, I think that's a super good question about the servicing. And does what's called end extras. So every year you get paid for having mortgages or auto loans and checking savings. They just give you money for banking it basically. So I guess that would be up to there. But yeah, okay. So the pre-qualification, like I said, that's just kind of us running general numbers. But really we want to do the pre-approval. When I pull your credit, it lasts for 4 months. So we really would talk about, for people that are looking to buy next summer, I'm telling them let's meet at the beginning of the year, just because you don't want multiple hits on your credit. So once we do that one initial hit, 4 months, we're hoping that it lasts us through the entire process. I mean, if it happens and we have to re-pull, then we would just wait till you kind of find a home. So I'd have your application ready to go. I could still send out pre-approval letters. Let's say it takes 6 months to find a house. I would wait till we were under contract and then re-pull your credit, just to make sure we're not jumping the gun and hitting it too many times. So selecting a realtor, I said that's kind of, I would say, besides picking a good lender, is another just most important piece. So you want somebody that backs you. I think people have an idea that if you go out kind of by yourself and shop on your own and then you find a house and you share that realtor, that it can save you money. It really doesn't. That realtor will just make the whole 6%. The days are gone where they used to cut, their commission to kind of help both sides of it. Now they're going to take the full 6%. And you really do want somebody that's going to protect you guys and like your best interest in it. It's hard to play both sides just in life in general on any given issue or topic. So it's hard for a realtor to do what's best for the seller who wants to get the most money they can, and then the buyer wants to save as much as they can. It's just a hard thing to do. So anyway, finding your own person, the seller pays for it, so you might as well. Viewing properties. Once you find a realtor, you'll tell them how many bedrooms you want, how many bathrooms, if you want a single family home, a townhome, a condo, whatever it is, and they'll set you up on a search. So every day and every night you'll actually get emails of the new ones that are, coming up. Now a lot of realtors are doing coming soon, because people are actually like bidding without even seeing that house. They're like looking at pictures and bidding on it. So you would have that kind of up-to-date information on which ones are still open and available. Zillow, a lot of people think is a great tool, but it is not accurate at all. So some people will find a house on there and it's been sold for a year. So I would just say kind of stay away from that. It's again with the inflated prices. A realtor can really do a market rate assessment to know what they're asking. Yeah.
How about like that price rate chart thing that they got, like it says like, oh, this is really worth like $3,000 less or something like that. Sometimes they will have that.
This estimate or whatever.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I have a lot of people come in for refinances and they're like, well, this estimate says 293, and then the appraisal comes back 260. So I still think it's inflated because where they're getting that estimate is on the sales in the area and what people are listing for. So those houses may not sell for that price, but they're asking that price. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I had somebody get one under contract. They offered $315. The appraisal came at $280. That is a big spread. That seller was really excited. But for VA and FHA, they're government-backed loans, right? So the VA says, no, that house will appraise at, the loan amount. You're not getting anything extra above that. It's if it comes in at $275, it is worth $275. That's what you can get your loan for. So the seller is kind of pushed to have to drop their price, or they can't list it for 6 months offering VA or FHA because it's going to stick to house for 6 months. So most sellers budge. Writing an offer, so you find your house, you're really excited about it. You guys come to an agreement of what you want to put out there. So they're asking 300, you offer 300. You can ask at that point to cover your closing costs. So a few years ago, you could offer a little bit under the asking price, plus have them pay closing costs, and they would do it. Now there's 5 or 6 people offering the same house. So if you want closing costs kind of rolled into it, I just tell people to offer higher. So if they're asking 300, offer 305 with 5,000 in closing costs. So they're getting their bottom line of what they want. They're getting their asking price, but you guys are getting your closing costs covered. We're going to come up to it soon, but VA has a VA funding fee for active duty. If anybody receives any sort of disability, so if your spouse is retired and they have disability, that VA funding fee is waived. But for your active duty, it can be rolled in. So the closing cost then would just be your lender's costs and the taxes and the insurance. But
Is the funding fee set, or is it a percentage?
so the funding fee, and I should have got that, the initial, it is, but the very first one, then they reinstate it, so it's higher the second time. So the first one I think is like 0.25. It's a percentage of the loan amount of the purchase price, but your first initial using DA, it's cheaper, and then if you use it the second, third, fourth time, they reinstate it, they charge higher. So it goes all the way up to like 0.43%. So I've seen funding fees be like 13 grand. I mean, VA gets theirs for sure. So then we would weigh options in that sense when there is a large VA funding fee to know if like a conventional refinance would be better or a conventional purchase, or what's a different option. A lot of the times though, with the fact that you don't have mortgage insurance, you don't have to put money down. It's worth it, and it gets rolled in. So you write an offer. They come back and either accept it right off the bat, or they're going to counter. So they're going to say, nope, I don't want 300, I want 310, and you can say, I'll give you 306. You guys can go back and forth, and at that point you can just walk. I mean, there's no offer on the table. You guys didn't agree to anything, so you can just say, forget it, I'm on to the next, or you guys can go back and forth on it. Once everybody signs, then that's like the clock ticks. Ents can close VA in 30 days. A lot of people think it's like 45 to 60, but VA's picked up a little bit on the appraisal turnarounds, so we can close you guys in 30 days. So, like I said, clock starts, we get the contract, you guys will turn in what's called earnest money. Earnest money is what the seller requests to show that you have interest in that property. You are serious about it. So it could be 1,000. I've seen them all the way up to, I got one this week for 10,000. On their MLS listing, so where the offer, where you're looking at it, when the realtor sends it, it will say what the earnest money is, and that can be negotiated. So if you don't have $2,000 readily available, you can say, hey, I can only do 1,000, and they'll say, okay, or no, or whatever. But you write that check to a title company, and the title company will hold that. That is kind of like a down payment. It goes towards the bottom line amount. So that money does get used. Or if your offer was the 305 with 5,000 in closing costs, that money will go back to you at closing because your earnest money was just kind of like a security deposit. It's not needed at that point. So if the realtor and I can work the numbers correctly, then you could get your earnest money back. Any questions?
Is it still the earnest money you can, with home inspections and stuff, that the buyer has to work all those things, that is optional things, that person will do that?
No, so the earnest money, the title company's holding, so it'll go towards more of like the appraisal fee. So Ent doesn't collect an appraisal up front, everything's at closing. So that security deposit's going towards any closing costs, or your prepaids, or your down payment, that kind of stuff. The inspection, and it'll come up, I guess, the inspection is your choice. I definitely recommend it. The inspector goes in on your behalf with a fine-tooth comb and goes through it and makes sure that all the expensive things, the sprinkler system, the furnace, the electrical, all of that, the plumbing is good to go. If not, then they'll give you a list of things wrong, and you can submit that to the seller, and you guys can negotiate things being fixed. But it's really just protecting you. I mean, I had When I was actually looking at the house, the inspector came back and said there's cracks in all the plumbing that he was able to see. So like that, I mean, thousands of dollars. So of course, like I walked, there's no way. The seller obviously had it known. If my guy could come in and see it just like instantly. But I mean, he said that was like $12,000 job. So I wasn't going to ask for that. I just don't want anything to do with it. So that guy at that point, you can walk away and say, no, it's just too much. Or you can ask for it and if they pay for it. With all the hail damage, roofs are a big thing right now. So that's what I see most often requested is them fixing the roof, which helps on your insurance. So if you do see a roof that's like iffy, definitely answer it. They'll pay for it normally because they just claim it through their insurance. Okay, so the inspector is on your behalf. The appraiser is on my behalf. So the appraisal, I order it once we have a contract, and they go out just to make sure that the value is there. So it is for you and I, but it's making sure that the A and B are good, and that you guys are paying what you actually should, what that house is valued at. So they look at square footage, they look at the landscaping, they look at, of course, the homes around you and what's going on in the area. But that's when they come back and say what they believe the cost is. Title work. We do order, so in Colorado, the seller 99% of the time will pay the owner's title insurance. It is a fee that's disclosed. It runs about $1,200 to $3,000 depending on the loan amount. But it ensures that you guys have a free and clear deed. So there is no electrical liens, no plumber liens, no roofers out there that could come back to you 6 months later and say, hey, you owe me $3,000. It just makes sure that if anybody comes back, the title company has to pay it because they didn't do enough research to make sure you're free and clear. But the seller does pay that, so it's a big lump sum and that's disclosed that they do pay. And then closing. Then we go and we sign a bunch of papers and we celebrate. Let's go out and get the ring. And then you get a moving check. Any questions on that? Pre-fall, so that's where I talked about, that's just throw numbers around. I have a little calculator that I can go, okay, your gross income is this, you have car payment, you have credit card payments, you have student loan payments. We punch all that in there and then it gives us the loan amount that you would qualify for. So it's just kind of the general numbers before we do the hard hit on your credit. It's talking about your trade lines, the income calculations, the payment shocks. So some people think they want to buy a $400,000 house until I tell them what they have to pay. And they don't it's a big payment. So it's just kind of going over, and depending on the area, what the taxes are and the insurance is going to be, that plays a factor too. So a payment is made up of the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. The more developed areas, the taxes are going to be lower. The like Corderas, Wolf Ranch, where they're still building and they're brand new neighborhoods, they're going to be higher because they're for all the parks and fun stuff. All right, and we can punch in an address, you guys, as you're out shopping around. Again, that NMLS thing that the realtor sends you for the particular properties they should have the taxes, but you can always call and the lender and say, hey, can you tell me what the information is on this property? We can throw that into a payment. Your credit score. So this is kind of the best part of this entire thing, I think. This is the credit score and what your credit score is made up of is super important. At 18 years old, we all probably went out and got a credit card. It's pretty awesome. And spent the money because, well, I got. Like, I don't really have to pay that back, like, at any given time, right? And I didn't realize the effect that it had on your credit. One of the largest factors of your credit report is the amount owed on credit cards, your utilization rate. So your payment history is 35%. And this is a little off now because I just took a class last week. And now the utilization is actually 40%. So I think my history might have dropped. I don't really know. But utilization is the amount eligible. So you have a credit card for $1,000. What is the owed on that? So the prime amount for your revolving debt that you want to keep is below 30%. So if you have a $1,000 card, you really want that balance below $300. So it is better to have 4 or 5 different credit cards, all below 30% usage, than to have one maxed out. Which again, at 18, I thought just having the one was like the best thing, and then when I got my credit score, I was like, so it is actually better to have multiple cards, all with lower balances. The length of credit history. So for those 18-year-old credit cards that you have, you want to keep those open. You never have to use them. You can cut them up. But you don't want to close out trade lines unless you have like an annual fee, which don't open those credit cards. There's enough free ones. So if there's an annual fee, you don't want that. But if not, definitely keep it open because your history of credit plays a part. And then of course making your payments on time and not having charge-offs. So if you have any medical collections, credit card charge-offs, anything like that, definitely get those taken care of, or at least in some sort of a payment plan, kind of prior to this process if you can, because those do have a huge effect to pull your score down. For VA, the minimum credit score is 620. So that's actually VA and FHA. For conventional, you really want it like 680 and above. But VA, minimum 620, if you 621, you're good to go. Ways to boost your credit, make your payments on time, pay off your collections, but paying down your debt. It really, I met with people this week, and their credit scores were in the 500s, and they made all their payments on time. It literally was just their credit cards being maxed out. That was it. That's like what it was. So I told them to go, like, new credit plays part too, but as you can see, it's only 10%. So open like a couple of cards and spread that out, because then it looks like you're not maxed out on any. They want to see that you can manage your credit well and that you have availability. Yeah.
How long is that turnaround? So I guess you opened all those credit cards when that hit your credit multiple times?
So each
then-
hit counts for home buying during that process, your credit is good. You can shop around for 60 days. So once I hit your credit, you can go to Navy Federal, you can go to Pentagon, you can go to Air Academy, you can go all those places. As long as they're pooling for a mortgage, it doesn't have multiple hits. It's when you go and you apply for personal loans, credit cards, auto loans, mortgage loans, all of those are separate. So if you're shopping for a credit card, the first one would be that initial hit, and then the rest would be whatever.
Okay.
In these people's case, it's probably going to take them a good 3 to 6 months to clean it up. Just to, depending on when the credit card's closed, right? Because they all post at separate times. Some skip a month for some reason. Capital One posts like every 3 months. So, I mean, you would want to call the credit card bureau and actually bring it to their attention. Hey, I need you to report this to the credit bureau, and find out what that day that is, and that will help you too.
So how is your credit calculated if you have like a cosigner? If you have like someone stronger credit and someone weaker credit?
Yeah, so for pooling, and it's different for each like thing that you do, but for mortgages, we pull Tri-Bureau, so we're pulling from all 3, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And if you have a cosigner, it pulls there. So then you have 6 scores, and it uses the lowest mid score. So if yours is lower than your cosigner, it's going to be using yours for the pricing. So, yeah, I tell people that if they know one has an 800 credit score, one has a 580, you can put the 580 on the deed as the owner of the home, but you wouldn't want that on the loan. Which then can be their income, that plays a problem, we work on repairing their credit. And that's probably my favorite part of my job, is helping people build up their credit to get to the point where they can buy a home. So couples come in and we sit down and, okay, you can't do it now, that stinks, and I know it's like super sad, but in 6 months, if we do these things, you can build up. And then in 6 months they call and boom, you can get them a house. So it doesn't take long, it just is putting the time into it to actually do your research. We tell people to go to annualcreditreport.com. You get a free credit report every year. So you can go to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion and pull from each bureau. But I do recommend doing that because people, report incorrectly, mistakes are made. You could have something out there on your credit that you didn't even know. Medical is the worst. Those people will find like a bill from 8 years ago and just randomly throw it on there. That personally happened. My daughter was born. They called at like 8 o'clock at night that I had like a $30 collection from when my previous child, who was already 8, was born. Like, what are you talking about? So, I mean, they can report at any given moment. That myth that's out there that things fall off within 7 years, that's really not true because the creditors have figured that out. So they'll just constantly re-report. So in your 6.5 years, you think that's going to fall off, they will just refile. And so that'll look like it's brand new again. So you can't really dodge them. You can call if you have a collection, life happens and stuff goes wrong and you have a collection out there for, let's say, $5,000, you can call and negotiate. Like, hey, I want to pay this off. I want to figure it out. And they'll cut it sometimes like in half, less than half. They want something. So they will settle with you. And it wouldn't show paid off on your credit report, but it would show account settled in less than full balance. But it's still better than having an unpaid collection out there. Okay, so your income. So for you guys, VA is actually one of the more lenient ones, just because I have to collect your last month's LES and 2 years W-2s, but let's just say you're switching jobs or you're getting out or whatever, I can just collect an employment letter, just a job offer letter, and as long as you get a paycheck within a month of closing, we're good to go. So all they want to know is you're going to have some sort of an income. Self-employed, we have to have 2 years of self-employed income. So you have to claim it as reportable business income for 2 years. W-2s, we just need, like I said, last 2 years. If you were in school and you only have 1 year, then we would just collect college transcripts in place of that. Some people go find themselves for 6 months and they write letters of explanation. I took time off, I didn't want to work, I traveled, I whatever, and that works too. You would just write a letter of what you were doing, and I get to read it and see what kind of things went on. Social Security, income, retirement, we just collect those award letters. Child support, so if you receive child support, we just have to prove that you're going to receive it for the next 3 years. So there's a 3-year continuance. If you pay it, again, if it's less than 3 years, we don't have to count it. If it's like under the table and you don't put it on your taxes or whatever, and we don't know, I guess we don't know about that. But if we do have to count that as a payment if it's anything over 3 years. So, you have to pay out. Second income, you have to have at least 2 years on that job. So you have to have both jobs for 2 years. It doesn't have to be the same job. If you in the military and then you worked at Target and before that you worked at Walmart, we don't care where you worked, just as long as you had 2 jobs for 2 years. That last part's not right. Kind of outdated, sorry guys. They make these at the beginning of the year. Down payment, so VA, we don't have to put anything down. So that's why the down payment assistance programs, you would never want to do them as having this available. It's just the best deal. You have no money down and no mortgage insurance on there. So it's pretty awesome. FHA is 3.5% down. FHA loans have mandatory mortgage insurance, so they have them on there for the life of the loan. So they collect an upfront premium that gets rolled in, kind of like your VA policy, so it gets rolled into the loan and then you pay it the entire time. PMI does absolutely nothing for you guys. It really just protects Fannie Mae and the lender. It's just like a little pool of money that if you were to default, there's like a tiny bit that could be recouped in that. Gifts, if you guys have awesome family members that want to gift you funds to put down or to use for closing costs, we can totally do that. They would sign a gift letter and we would just collect a statement just showing that they had the money and wasn't borrowed. Down payment assistance, so we offer that. But again, you guys wouldn't necessarily want to do that. For assets, we do collect 2 months of bank statements, so we would collect that, all the pages. It's just showing that there wasn't any large deposits. You can't have borrowed funds for mortgages, so unsecured borrowed funds. You couldn't take out a personal loan, put it in your account, and then use that for anything for the mortgage, because it has to be seasoned, essentially. So if you take out a personal loan that you want to use, as long as it's in your account for 60 days, those 2 months, we're good. They just have to be seasoned, good, not borrowed, not from anything crazy money. VA, so that is not correct either. 417, they have increased that to 420. Jumbo loans are anything over the standard 420 purchase price. So if you wanted to buy a house for 500,000, VA would say, okay, well the difference between the 420 and the 500, that 80 grand, you have to put 25% of that 80 grand down as kind of a down payment, but they will allow it, and they can insure it, you still get the better rates and all that good stuff.
So 25%.
Of the difference,
Anything above 420, you said?
yeah. It's 421, 300.
Is that a good idea?
I do a lot of jumbo loans, actually, and it's still, again, so for conventional loans, we do conventional loans for jumbo, again, over the same amount, but they are required to put 10% down, so it's a little bit less some of the time, but then they have mortgage insurance on there, and mortgage insurance on a jumbo loan is gonna be pretty pricey. So paying only the 25% of that spread isn't usually too hard to pay.
So if you have a VA loan here in the Springs and you go to another location, or your next to the location, can you top off your VA loan with however much?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say too. So you have the 420, let's say, available. Your house here
It's
is,
200,000.
yep, so you can go buy a house to use the rest of that entitlement. Or if you go over that, then again, same rules apply. You pay 25% of the difference. Yeah. Yeah.
What if you paid the other house? Let's say you did one VA loan, it was 200,000, you paid that off. Could you do another VA loan?
Yep, so then it's reinstated.
Okay.
So in that sale, they would report that to the VA, the title company would, and they would reinstate that fund. So then your full entitlement's there. You're ready to go again.
How many times can you do that?
As many as you want, but you will have that funding fee. So then it would
Fee
just
goes
be,
up.
yeah, the fee gets higher.
What if you had two houses, you combine with your VA loan?
So you can't buy it, but you can take turns. So like you would use yours to buy this house, you would use theirs to buy the next house, because then again, it keeps that fee down. Or like I said, some people get out and they have disability. If you have at least 10% disability, it waives that VA funding fee. Just for people. The VA is very generous with that. But yeah, so it's not combining, like then you can go buy like an $800,000 house, but you can use whomever's has the cheaper funding fee.
And that's 420 cap is the same for all states. In California, you can't touch a place for 500,000, just as an example.
No, so yeah, the eligibility is different for.
So the cap difference is different
For
is
California.
per state.
Right,
is what
like
you're saying.
Maine is a lot higher, so it is the state.
That's huge. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, conventional loans, it's per county. Yeah. So
whatever
like
you
El
loan.
Paso County is 421, 300, but Douglas County, it's like 5 something, right? Because the cost of living, the prices are just a lot higher. So California, you're not gonna buy a $400,000 home probably. Not anywhere really cute, my parents sold their house, speaking of California, before everything went so bad. So what, that was like a month before everything crashed in 2008. They sold this house for like $890,000. That here would be like a $200,000 house. It was just like a plain rancher, 3-bedroom. Mind blown. It's crazy. So, yep, we would see what is the best bet for you. Some people do have money down. If you want to use your VA eligibility and put money down, if you put at least 5% down, it cuts that VA funding fee. So we can run those options too. If you do have money that you want to put towards it, it can bring that VA funding fee down. Make it cheap.
The next time you buy a house, will your VA fee increment to like a normal VAT? So it would be like your first time buying it. So let's say you're at like 1% for your first year. And you put 5% down, that's a 5%. Next time, is it going to jump up to 2% or is it going to jump up to your regular 1%?
It jumps up to that like point. Yeah, it will jump up because you're reinstating and using it. But then if you put the money down on it, so you made money on this house, then you put it down on the next. Like I said, some people use VA just to get in their first home, and then they make money on their first house. Well, now you can go conventional. You put 20% down on a conventional loan. You don't have mortgage insurance. You don't have that VA funding fee. So we'll look and see like what the best. I mean, I'm all about saving money, so seeing what the best bet for you guys is.
I know you said there's an increment for the VA funding fee. Is that increment still if you buy a primary home, you're at 1% for argument's sake, you sell it, you PCS, you get your next place, you buy a house again, which is considered your primary residence again. Does it still increment since that's just your second house, or
It is.
it does?
Yeah, and VA, it has to be your primary residence. You can't buy rental or investment properties with VA. You
So-
sign a document 8 times that says it's going
So
to
if I
be.
PCS and then purchase a place and keep my house here,
Yeah, rent this one out.
rent it out,
The next one would be your primary. So
okay,
you would
that's
pay that
okay
fee.
there.
As
Okay.
long as you're
Yes.
in this place for 2 years, or in the house for 2 years,
Right.
right? I think that's what it is.
Yep,
You have the current home for 2 years.
got it. Or don't claim it as a rental for 2 years. Right? People will come to me and I'm like, oh, have you had it for 2 years? Well, yeah, my family. And a lot of times, right, you do find family. They can stay in it and take care of it. And who knows, like, if you're going to go there for a little bit and then come back. I mean, you guys are all over the place. But yeah, you couldn't claim it formally as a rental, or they do not want you to. And you'll get like tax hits for that too. So, yeah. Construction loans, we offer construction loans, land loans. They are really expensive, but if you wanted to build your own house and hire your own people and do all that on your own, you can do that. VA would come into part when you're turning it into permanent financing though. So VA wouldn't help you with the construction and land fees, but they would help you with the permanent 30-year. They have 30-year and 15-year loans for VA.
Higher interest at first or something to.
Just during the building process. So like our land loans right now, and I was gonna look up the VA financing table, so I'll see what that is. The land loans right now are like 7.75%. You can do them as long as you have the intent to build on it within 5 years. So they're kind of short terms. And then the construction piece really is like a year that you would have that, and those would run higher too.
Because I'm just talking about in Maine, and that's my next question. Maine is super expensive and old in the housing market. So when you go to it, you could actually cheaper to buy or do the construction loan and have it built before you get there and have a brand new home than it would to actually buy old.
Nice.
So that's what I was thinking. I don't know.
But would that be through like a builder that's already like Keller Homes or Vantage Homes? So that wouldn't be considered a construction loan. You could still use your traditional finance if you're doing just a new build. Yeah. So as long as, so where the construction land loan piece comes in is if you're actually wanting to hire people that are gonna break ground, put the well in, put the driveways in, you're doing it all. You're contracting out all of the work on your own. You're hiring an architect to do all of this. If you go through a builder, then you're good. DA is gonna treat that as just a new home. I wanted to see. I have the VA table, and I'm sorry that I did not. It changes that. Okay. So, okay, so first time use for active duty is 2.15%. The funding fee. Yeah, so the first time use, if you put at least 5% down, it drops to 1.5%. And then if you put 10% down, it's 1.25%. But then we would look and see if there's a better option for you. We'll compare all the programs. And then for each subsequent use, the next time you do it, it's 3.3%. The highest it gets is 3.6%. You can do too, once you're in your house, let's say we lock you in at 4%, rates bottom out again, drops down to 3%. VA allows what's called an IRL. It's a just reduction loan program, and that they only charge 0.5% on the funding fee. So it's a super easy process, but it lowers your interest rate without doing the full refi. Yeah.
When you said the 10% down drops it to like 1.2% or whatever, is that on the difference again?
So it's on the purchase price or
Okay.
your loan amount. Yeah, so the VA funding fees on your loan amount. But again, they do allow you to roll that in, which is nice. So they allow you to finance it versus having to pull that out of pocket. Yeah. So mortgage insurance, we went over that. It does really nothing for you guys, but it protects the lender. FHA, on there, the life of the loan. Conventional loans, the mortgage insurance cost is based on your credit score. So when we say like 680 minimum, that's because it's harder to find MI. And at a 6, for example, I have a member $300,000 house, his credit score is 679. They, for the mortgage insurance, they have to pay like $330 a month. So it's like, that's a huge amount. But yeah, it's cancelable for a conventional loan once you have 20% equity in the home when you pay it down. Okay, so these are the programs that are in there, and if you want to read about them, you can. CHAPA and El Paso County Turnkey or down payment assistance programs. It is a grant, so it's totally free money to you guys, but they do charge a higher interest rate. So today, when I looked this morning, their rates were up to 5%. For a traditional like FHA loan is 3.75, and you do have mortgage insurance. So it is free money, but nothing's really free. You can pay that back. But if you have questions on it, you can totally call me. The only other program I would say that's super good is END's First Time Home Buyer. It's a conventional loan. So again, that MI would fall off eventually, the mortgage insurance. The minimum is 3% down. And I would say this would just be, I've had people where they're getting out of the military, things are kind of up in the air. I don't know why they're getting out. Probably not for the best if they're not sure if they're going to be, I don't know. But where VA is kind of questionable, if you can have at least 3% down, this is a good program. And to pay part of the mortgage insurance. So it's factored with 3% down at 34%, and we would pay a portion of that. So instead of $300 in mortgage insurance, it would just be the $150. So it's pretty good for, I tell people, just they come in, if you can save at least 3% of the purchase price, this is a good program. It waives your origination fee, your processing fees, it keeps the closing costs pretty low. The appraisal, we order that again upon contract. VA and FHA have safety and soundness and certain property requirements. So when you're out shopping, you will see that some people only will accept conventional financing. Normally that's some sort of red flag. They either don't want to deal with VA or FHA, or something may not quite be right to where they won't accept it. Because normally, if everything is like good to go, you'll just offer all financing types, right? So you can get as many offers and good offers. But safety and soundness, so they check like railings. If railings are shaky, those have to be fixed. Back porches, I had somebody that they saw the back porch wasn't completely level, so that has to be corrected. Peeling paint is a huge thing. Just because of lead-based paint from back in the day. So if it's an older home and there's peeling paint, they will require them to paint it. But again, these are all things that really the realtor should be letting the seller know, and the seller at that point is just gonna fix it. But it is for your protection. I mean, VA appraisers are legit. I mean, they go in and they make sure that your house is good to go. So I think that's awesome. That it's just extra protection for you guys. Condos and townhomes have HOA dues, so usually they will take care of the grounds, or sometimes they throw in like the trash pickup or water or whatever it is, but you do have a HOA due that plays a part into your debt to income ratio. The difference between condos and townhomes is townhomes you own the home and the land that it sits on, condos you just own the home. So the land piece is owned by the condo complex. For using VA, the condo complex has to be VA approved. There's certain rental to owner ratios that have to be met. Yeah.
I've heard pros and cons on HOAs. What's your overall opinion?
You know, it used to be a thing where nobody would even want to buy townhomes and condos, but now with house prices being higher, I think it's a lot of people are going that route just to find reasonable homes.
I mean, I've seen them for houses though too.
Yes. So for houses, I used to, when I bought my old house, I would refuse to be in an HOA.
Right.
But then I missed it because people are like parking on their lawn and like painting houses purple, and you're like, what am I doing? So I do think in neighborhoods they're good because it just keeps everybody honest, right?
And
Like,
make sure that then they're not very shielded.
exactly. Like the one I'm in now, they do, if your like lawn looks awful, they will like fine you for that. Like you've got to keep it. So I would say just read the HOA docs. Stetson Hills has a lot of HOAs. Some of them are just hard. You can't have cars in the street past midnight. That's what got me. They would like put these orange stickers on my friends' cars. So like just read it and see like what the rules and regulations are. Some are a little crazy and a little just unrealistic, but really the overall idea of them is good because it's just to keep everybody kind of intact, but your house value there. And like I said, for townhomes and condos, I mean, the first house I ever bought was a townhome. I loved it. They like shoveled my driveway and made sure everything was good. And so yeah, I took care of the lawn. I didn't have to mow anything. I have a 17-year-old I'm like, go mow the grass. She's like, it's a lawn mower. But yeah, so HOAs and neighborhoods, they do go, like I said, into your debt to income ratio, but ideally, the ideal is usually pretty good. On manufactured homes, you can do, VA does allow manufactured. They have to be on permanent foundations. You cannot like hitch it to your truck and move it. If it's movable, then it's a mobile home loan, and we do not offer those. But as long as it's on permanent foundation, it's bridge title, we're good to go. You can do manufactured. Closing costs. Before we get in here, I had said about your debt to income. VA has pretty lenient debt to income ratios, but they look at like a back end ratio, which is kind of where they kind of take into account like homeowners, like the fees that we don't have to put in your debt to income, because we only look at what's reporting on your credit report, car loans, student loans, personal loans, credit card payments. That's what we're looking to factor the debt to income. VA has this like residual income is what it's called, where they also kind of take into account that you have utilities, you have homeowners or auto insurance, you have gas, you have groceries. So it's hard. I've had loans approved all the way up to like 55% if they have a lot of assets. And then I've had some where I'm like fighting just to get it approved at 45%. So it's hard to know with VA what exactly they want, but if you have any sort of savings or retirement, that helps. You don't have to use it. It's just showing that you do have, backup. Okay. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Closing costs. So VA has some fees. They're called non-allowables that lenders and real estate agents cannot charge you. So if you find a realtor and they're like, well, here's our fees, just Google non-allowable fees for VA and make sure that you're not being charged anything you shouldn't. And lenders that you've heard of that aren't like just weird ones, they have non-allowables already built in, like, and knows what can and cannot be charged. Maybe Fed would know, Air Academy would know, maybe big lenders would know what is not allowable, but definitely double check it, make sure you're not paying anything you shouldn't. But there is an origination fee. So when you're shopping around for loans and you make a call and somebody says, well, we don't have any closing costs, they do, it's just gonna be built in the rate. So if they say there's no origination fee, the rate's gonna be a little bit higher normally. Because everybody has to make money somehow. So the origination apparently, or pays out like everybody to do your loan. It's paying out the person, like the loan officer, it's paying out the underwriter, it's paying off the closer, it's paying off the back end people. It's the origination fee is who pays everyone. So whether it's earned in interest or it's earned in a flat fee, you can roll it in again. You can buy up rates and move rates around just like anybody. If they say there's no closing costs, we can do that too and kind of put that in there. It does match rates too. So if you call, I wouldn't say USA because we usually beat them, but Navy Fed. They're the ones that we're like kind of neck and neck with all the time. So if Navy Fed offers 3.5% for VA, no origination fee, you can send that in and they'll match it. Normally. I did get to a no yesterday, I was a little sad, but it was a really good offer. And we shop around too, right? We pay all the big named lenders are gonna pay people that are kind of doing their due diligence to make sure we're competitive. But shop around, there's regulations out there that ensure that you have time to double check your stuff and make sure you're getting the best deal. But part of your closing costs are, of course, the cost to do the loan and then prepaids and reserves. So that is setting up your escrow account. That's paying your taxes and your insurance right off the bat. And then setting up a little pool that you pay into monthly. So next year when tax time comes, we pay that for you. So you guys will never pay a tax bill or directly to insurance. Buyer versus seller, again, you can ask for seller concessions. When I made my offer and I bought in this crazy market, I asked for all my closing costs to be covered and they accepted. So there are some people out there that are still, they're aware that that's gonna be factored in, and they'll still pay it. So any amount you can get out of seller is just less money for you, which is awesome.
So what if you're trying to sell your house? How much leverage do you have to, want to have a buyer that pay those kinds of fees?
Yeah, so what I tell people normally when they're selling is you have to factor that you're gonna be paying 7% off. Like, so if you're asking for 300, 7% of that is what you're paying out. Because each agent, real estate agent, gets 3%. So the buyer and the seller, and then 1% I just say for closing costs. Because normally people do ask. But again, like in this market, you can totally say no. That's that. So,
Have people had success doing that?
but no, we're asking for them.
Yeah, saying, as a seller, I'm gonna defer.
Oh, all the time.
The
Yeah.
buyer's like, oh yeah, sure, I want this house, I'm gonna buy it.
All the
That's good
time.
enough.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, like, as a buyer, you'll wanna offer probably a little bit higher
Yeah.
than what they want, just to make sure those get covered. So, just, that's a way, you can't roll in closing
Yeah.
costs, but that's a way of rolling closing costs, is just offer a little more. Cause $5,000 over 30 years is only gonna be like 16 bucks a payment versus coming up with $5,000 right off the top. There is what's called TRID. It protects the buyer. So you get a closing disclosure, which are your final figures, and sends them out 7 days before. It's called a prelim. It meets the TRID guideline to make sure you have your numbers. But it just really keeps everybody honest. Again, it's you guys look at them and say, hey, I thought, that you guys were gonna waive this, or the seller is gonna pay that. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's just human beings that make mistakes. So it's just making sure everybody's on the same page, all the numbers are right, and then 3 days before, or a day before, or whatever you're closing, you get your final amount of where it's at. Ta-da! Any questions? Yeah.
So if you move to a new town and you don't really know anybody, do you have any tips for finding a good realtor that you can trust, or is there?
Home buyers program, USAA's home buyer program. It actually pays you $1,000 to use their service.
That, and, yes, I have heard that. Just ask around. I mean, shop at everybody, but like, I think you guys, when you move somewhere, you meet with, like at your new base, right? There's like readiness people there. I know Chris Fernandez at Pearson, or now I can't speak here, but there's somebody that you meet with, right? They would have people, I would say word of mouth, honestly, like the first friend you meet, ask if they know anyone. Because that's the best way to kind of get somebody saying that they do a good job for them. USA, I know, has that program. My husband works over there, but I know there's some like back end stuff. So just ask relevant details about that.
I have recommendations for the USA program because I used it when I got here and I got $1,000 for that. I had a fantastic realtor and everything. So I didn't even know him and trust him like a friend.
And then there's usually someone on the base if they've been there 2 or 3 years. Just somebody sitting behind you right now.
Yeah, I think it's just word of mouth. But yeah, I mean, USA, even just calling, if you don't use them for like the financing piece, you can call and they'll give you a bunch of people to refer out, which is super cool.
Thank you.
I've been hearing that the market is level out. Is it level out or is it starting to swing?
it is not swinging the other direction. I think it's slowing down normally in the fall, in the winter it slows down anyway.
Oh, so that's just time of year, not
I
overall.
don't think it's the market. The market is not slowed down. So it's just, it slowed down, but it always slows down at this time. But, I mean, as far as, are you available? Okay. Okay, so he can say, like, I mean, as far as like the prices, the inventory is still short, right? So, there's still not a lot out there to choose from, but it's definitely not going the other direction.
You recommend selling your rent? I mean, that's kind of the question based on the government financing. Yeah. Well, what would you do?
Ask me, because I had a horrible experience, but, I mean, if you get like a, like a management company, I would say totally bankrupt, right? They're gonna be honest, they're gonna do like background checks. Go.
Here, because we have so many military bases, you don't have to worry about rent going down or really property management. There's so many military bases that it's we're safe and secure here, and the things that are coming here within the next couple of years, I don't think we have a lot to worry about as far as property values go. It might go stagnant in 3 or 4 years, but I don't see it going down.
So you're saying rent?
Oh my gosh, those rental prices are crazy.
Yeah, they are.
Dead. So I mean, you can make that money. I personally did not do well. I don't cry. I believe everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm against it. But if I like had somebody that would have helped me out, like I would totally do it. Just and because there's not enough rentals out there. I mean, I have people that can't find a home, and so then they're trying to find a home to rent, and they can't even find that. So yeah, definitely. And I think the military helps like back it, right? Like
Yeah,
background checks.
Sites like Ahern.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say for you definitely. Yeah.
Going back to real estate agents, like when you're looking for one, like how skeptical do you think you have to be? Like, do they have any incentives that don't really match like getting you a good deal that you need to look out for?
I mean, it's respectable everywhere, right? I mean, from my experience, people I've met, I know the ones that are just in it because they make good money, but they work hard. I mean, it is an all day, every day job to be a real estate agent. So, I mean, if you find people that are really passionate about what they do, and you'll know, right, in the first couple of minutes of talking to them, you're gonna know if you're another deal that they're gonna make money on, or if they're really excited to help you. I mean, I work with some that I adore them. They've become friends. They just love helping people. And so they're out there just really trying to get the best deal they can in an inflated market, you know, and this guy seems great, right? He's
I'm alright.
but I think it's in any job, right? There's some people that are just there to make dollar and whatever, but real estate agent, they put in time, and I mean, we're working at 11 o'clock at night back and forth where they're responding to my emails. So they work super hard for the money they make.
We bought a zoo. That's the best representation of real estate agent I've ever seen.
Really?
We bought a zoo. You should check it out.
I watched some of it, but it made me cry. So.
Well,
But now I'm gonna have to watch
yeah,
it.
just for the real estate.
Yeah.
Just any tips or advice, if you're projecting 1 year out that you want to buy a house this time next year, is there anything you should do that you can recommend for us to do with regards to what not to do, like maybe not do a new car purchase in the next year, maybe pull personal loans, consolidate debt? Is there things that we can do ahead of time with a 1 year projection to better our chances for first time buyers?
Yeah, and we can totally sit down and look at stuff too, like big picture, pull your credit. Definitely know where that's at, but consolidating a personal closed-end loan looks better than that revolving debt again. So you would keep those credit cards open, but then it looks like you have a $5,000 available line and a $4,000 whatever, and then you just have this installment closed-end personal loan that you're making your payment on. So that is a definite better option to do that. Really, it would just be knowing where your debt to income ratio is. If you're looking to buy a car, but you know you want to buy a house in a year, so it's punching in like, hey, I'm not going to spend more than $350 a month on a payment. Punching that in, making sure that the house that you think you want to buy in the year to come, that you're still good as far as the debt to income.
Speaking of DTI, I have not a bad habit, but I have a habit of calling all my credit cards and asking for an increase just because, like every 6 months. But that makes that income ratio better, doesn't
The
it?
utilization, yeah, is higher. So as long as you're not doing that to have 15 grand to go spend 15 grand
Right.
on all of them, because again, being maxed out is gonna hurt you.
It's just
But
raise
yeah,
my
if you're
ceiling.
just doing it, and they'll do that a lot of times without pulling your credit. I mean, I tell people that if they have $2,000 and it is close to max out, I tell them to call and see if they can raise it just by making their payments on time, because a lot of times they will. They don't necessarily have to pull your credit to do that. But then honestly, I mean, then it just expands it to now, instead of being almost maxed out, you're at 50%, 40% utilization. So yeah, I think it's good to do it. I do it.